Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys having me. I'm honored and humbled for this opportunity to contribute to a great cause with Lawrence First and Goal Foundation. My name is Kamau Dumas. I'm the secondary coach and recruiting coordinator at Maonmouth University. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about defensive back development, just applying the teaching, okay, taking it from the class to the grass, okay. So just starting this off, I'm going to take you guys into a meeting setting for me. I am a man of faith, and for me, every meeting, I give our players a verse of the day, right? And, everyone comes from different walks of life, everyone comes from different backgrounds. This is just something to kind of get these guys' mind in a great place, keeping everything in perspective, right? Our job is to develop men first and foremost. And I believe when we truly build genuine relationships and develop these guys as men first, then everything else takes care of itself on the field, and we can coach those guys intensely. So Proverbs 18:16 is the verse for tonight. It says, "A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men." So just like the rest of these coaches that are out in this profession and what we do as a ministry, we all have been given a gift of being able to teach and inspire learning. Coaching is a calling. So, I'm just very honored for this opportunity, and, the gift that I've been given, or the calling that I have of being a teacher and a mentor, has allowed me to have opportunities such as this one here. So, just, really honored for this. And I just want to start this off the same way I would a position meeting. So, just getting into this a little bit, bear with me here. It's lagging a little bit here. Okay. Get to this next slide. Just bear with me. Okay. So just starting this off, for me, everything starts off with just our identity, okay? And, when you play the defensive back position, I played the position, I've been in these guys' shoes, you want to be able to have an identity, right? We do have an actual identity for ourselves. And I think anytime you can give your unit an identity, it really allows those guys to take ownership of it and embrace living up to the standard that you set on a daily basis. So first, we want to have swagger, right? You talk about having confidence. This is a high risk, high reward position, right? So you have to have confidence, and confidence comes from preparation, which we'll talk about here in a second. We're going to be technically sound. I always believed as a coach, it's extremely important to be a technician at your position, right? Anything that pertains to defensive back play, eyes, leverage. Okay, this receiver's stemming me inside, coach. What should I do here? We're in a 3rd and 2 situation, coach. What should I do? This guy's off the ball, right? How you do everything, is very important at the position within the scheme, right? And then being ultimate competitors, okay? You have to win a lot more than you lose. You're going to lose sometimes. And at the end of the day, you have to win a lot more than you lose. So just training the guy's mind to have that type of mindset and competitive grit. And then here in the red is just having a dog mentality. This is a non-negotiable. You have to be able to reset after each play, and we'll kind of talk more about the affirmations, but just having a dog mentality, right? You got to be gritty. You want to compete relentlessly 24/7. And then looking at the bottom of this slide, just talking about the eyes, feet, and pad level, which are kind of things that we hang our hat on here at Monmouth University. Okay, bear with me here. Apologies, this is lagging a little bit. Okay, so I'm just talking about the thought process next, right? Our mind, controls how we go about our daily work. So before we even get into the physical aspect of training the position, we want to train the mind, right? So when we line up every play, we need to know the situation. Okay, the situation determines my technique. They're in the red zone. Okay, I'm going to play my technique a little bit differently than I would in the middle of the field, right? They're backed up in the come out zone. It's 3rd and 2, and we're sending a 6-man pressure, right? So I need to know the situation first in order to play my technique. Know the given coverage, okay? We talk about obnoxious communication, verbal and nonverbal communication, right? If we're looking back at the film, there's no secrets on what support call was given because these guys are communicating non-verbally. Knowing the support call, right? So I can play my proper technique and look where I need to. Knowing my progression, which I'll get into my teach progression here in a second. And then again, competing relentlessly 24/7. Okay. It doesn't matter the last play, the next play doesn't matter. Every play has a life of its own. And then at the bottom here, just talking about positive affirmations. Okay. I'm very big on speaking positively into the guys. Okay. There's going to be a standard. And if you fall short of that standard, there's consequences, of course. But at the end of the day, we just want to make sure we're pouring into our guys the proper way so they can go out and compete. All right. What gets us beat? Again, the defensive back position, it's a high risk, high reward position. All right. A guy on the defensive line may get kicked out of his gap. Well, you still have second and third level defenders to get that ball carrier down. If a corner or a nickel or a safety gets beat one on one in man coverage, okay, my grandmother knows when that guy got beat. Okay. It usually results in an explosive play. So, not recognizing that there is a weakness is an extreme weakness in itself. So there are things that we need to always be cognizant of, right? What gets us beat at the defensive back position? Our eyes, okay? And I always say, see a little, see a lot. All right. I'm focused on my technique and my keys within the given coverage and support calls, right? So my eyes have to be looking where they need to be, right? I'm not looking in the wrong place. My feet, okay, using the proper footwork and technique based on what type of support call we have. And then leverage, okay? Leverage is extremely, extremely important, whether it be leveraging ball carriers, whether it be aligning properly based off of the splits of receivers. All those things tell a sign. So eyes, feet, and leverage are the main things that we need to keep in mind in terms of playing in the back end. All right, looking at the bottom, right? Positive affirmations. Again, if you get beat on a play, why did I lose this rep? I'm not going to immediately just go to beating myself up and tearing myself down. What did I do? Hey, I didn't align properly here because this guy had a cut split. I didn't take the proper footwork in my off man technique. So this guy was able to stem me opposite of my leverage, right? What could I have done better? Okay. Whether I won the rep, whether I lost the rep, and then having a short memory. The last play can't affect the next play. The next play to come up doesn't matter. I'm living in the moment right now, 6 seconds of focus, executing my given assignment. But what are just some critical factors? Again, this goes in recruiting, when we're recruiting guys, but just in general, when you're developing guys in the back end, these are things that we consider critical factors, right? Being able to play man-to-man coverage. A lot of teams run middle of the field closed, middle of the field open. It just doesn't really matter what you're running. At some point within the scheme, your guys are going to be asked to cover somebody man to man, and we want to make sure our guys can do that. If you're in a matchup zone principle, if you're in a true man principle, quarters coverage, right, can turn into man after 5 yards. So we want to be able to have guys that can play man to man coverage, and then being able to teach zone off of that is a little bit easier, in my opinion, not vice versa. The ability to tackle. Tackling is a premium. That's something that we're going to drill on a daily basis. You have to be able to tackle in space. You have to be able to fit in internal gaps and lever ball carriers. You have to be able to tackle, and that's a want to, right? We're going to teach proper leverage and proper tackling techniques. But again, that's a want to, and we have to have guys that want to go tackle ball carriers. And then being able to track the ball deep down the field. A lot of times, as you get up in levels, you see it from high school to college to the pros, right? The trajectory of that ball gets more and more challenging, right? Receivers get better and better at being able to adjust to the ball. So, being able to track the ball downfield for us is a critical factor as well at playing the position. Going from a teaching standpoint, again, we want to bring everything from the class to the grass. So, we're not going to take anything for granted. We're going to teach from a fifth grade level and then build and develop off of that. So, right, understanding what pass zones are on the field. So when we're talking about, man match principles or zone match principles within a coverage, true spot drop coverages, right? What is a curl flat? Okay. We talk about, you know, teaching our players different things on the field, right? We can't assume anything, right? If I tell a player, hey, you need to make sure that you're on your divider, midpointing and outside third, or we tell this nickel, hey, you need to make sure you're dropping to the hook curl. Well, what is that? And, it's our job to make sure we're giving these guys the proper information. So just teaching them the zones of the field. When you talk about corners, when you talk about stars or even safeties playing in the slot, we give our guys divider rules. So understanding where a receiver is naturally going to align based on the ball, right? Which hash it's on, whether it's in the middle of the field. So just teaching our guys what zones on the defense are. And, this is something I truly live on and I live by, right? Practice habits equal game reality. Practice habits equal game reality, okay? What you do in practice is going to directly show up in a game. All right. None of us are going to go into a game situation become Superman and put a cape on, right? You're gonna fall back to the level of your training. So when it comes to practice, it's something that we take very seriously. I believe in being very demanding of our players. So if you see something in practice that's not looking the way you want it to be, make that correction. That's why it's practice. Make the correction in practice so that when you get into a game situation, these guys have the confidence and the repetition of executing in their training. Okay, so every single thing is being coached in practice, making sure our guys are practicing at a championship level. So when you get to the game, nothing changes. You can rely on your training. All right. Just going down the applied teaching, okay, right? We need to be able to bring what we talk about in a classroom setting out to the grass, right? Out to the turf. So from the class to the grass. We believe in giving our guys 7 opportunities to learn and apply the teaching, okay? I told you guys before, I'm a spiritual man. The number 7 is the number of completion, right? So, there's 7 opportunities for our guys to learn the applied information and then go and put it on the practice field, right? And in a game setting. So first, it's going to be in the classroom, right? On the whiteboard. Visio drawings, okay? Anytime we install, and I'll show you guys an example, our guys are going to be in a classroom setting, notepad and pen out, being attentive, phones away, and they're going to see a visual drawing on Visio, or they're going to see on the whiteboard, or probably both, to be honest. They're going to see both ways, but they're going to see on the whiteboard or drawings, what we're installing for that week. Okay, they'll have an opportunity to see pre-practice film. So we're installing XYZ today. Here are some pictures of it. And then here are some practice films or game film reps that you guys will have an opportunity to see before we actually go out and mimic it. The third opportunity will be through walkthroughs, or what we call run throughs, right? Jog through tempo, getting out on the field, matching routes and pass fit, okay? Doing run fits at a slower tempo so our guys are communicating properly and fitting where they need to. They'll have an opportunity to continue that teaching in their individual periods. They'll get to a pass skelly situation. Again, that's being accomplished as well through pass fits, but now we're going full speed against the offense or having a full speed look. They'll be able to apply that teaching into team setting. Okay, this is 11 on 11 football now, a game type setting and environment, putting all those things together. And then lastly, post practice film. So now we've gone through all of our steps of the teaching, and that final step now is going back and evaluating ourselves, things we did well, things that we need to improve on, right? So just going from the class and then getting it all the way to the grass and applying the teaching on the field.